Okay, we are live. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting for my guest. And if he doesn't show up, it's going to be a very, very short episode, because I think I have for 5 or 10 minutes. But we'll see. Maybe he has some technical problems. Hi John, hi Mike, hi Tommy. So, hey Mel. So I still hope my guest can call in via vMix call, so I can prepare everything, because I have to prepare the overlays. But we'll see. It's also going to be a small test. Still trying to find a sweet spot about the length of the show, and because triggers is a combination of triggers and shortcuts. I'm going to keep the triggers, the shortcuts for in 2 or 3 weeks. Hey Martin, hi Elmar, nice to see you over here. So I see that my guest hasn't still called in, so I'll prepare myself then for the show, and we'll see if it comes in live or not. Let me just mute my. So it can be a little later. My guest has just shown up. I'll try to see if everything is working okay. So bear with me for a moment. Later, my guest has just shown up. I'll try to see if everything is working. Well, try to adjust a few things here in my virtual set. If my guest could just be a little quiet for the moment, so they don't know who it is. Adjust a few things here in my virtual set. If my guest could just be a little quiet for the moment, so they don't know who it is. Adjust a few things here in my virtual set.
Do I leave my YouTube audio on or off?
Off, Tommy, but I'm, well, yeah.
Uh-oh.
That's not, well, for others, I have a problem here.
Can you hear me, Rudy?
Yeah, I can hear you, Tommy. So is...
I'm not getting anything back. Hold on. Can you hear me, Rudy?
Yeah, I can hear you, Tommy. So is... Okay, Tommy, I'm going to mute you now. So then I come back to you, okay? So is... Tommy, I'm going to... Okay, so everybody knows who the guest is now, but never mind. We'll soon start the show. Let me just try to figure out something. Okay. Well, that should do the trick. So let's start the show a little bit over time. My apologies for that. let's start the show. This show is sponsored by Xkeys, the company that knows how to push the button. And welcome everyone to the 11th episode of School of Live Streaming. I'm Rudy Engels, and well, the main objective of this show is try to teach some people how to start live streaming. Oops. Okay, if you like this, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already to my show, please subscribe. And if you want to be notified, click the bell. Thank you very much. So what we're going to talk today is triggers. But before we start talking about triggers, let me first show you something interesting that's coming up next Thursday. And this one. Oops, okay. Because next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, that's 2 o'clock in the night for me, 1 o'clock for the people in the UK. It's vMix live show, the April edition. What's probably going to be the most interesting thing on that show is that they'll more than likely going to launch vMix 21 beta, so everyone can start playing with the beta. Maybe they'll announce a few things we don't know yet, but for those who eagerly to wait for the color correction and all the other stuff, Thursday 8 p.m. Eastern. Yes, Elmar, that's for us 2 o'clock in the night, so I don't think, if I'm not awake, that I'll going to watch live, but hey, we'll see what it brings. Another interesting thing I found was that one of my compatriots from Belgium, who is also in the different groups on Facebook, namely Ittai De Vree, he works together with the national television in Belgium. And apparently he had to explain how and what vMix could do in a real professional environment. So let me just share you quickly some pictures. Apparently the audio is via Dante, but all the rest is done with vMix. So let me show you this one. So this is for the people who knows it. Again, an Xkeys. I think that's the kind of a mixing board or whatever, a very professional one. I see a decimeter, if I am right. Here you can see, so Canvas is, we have a national broadcast television. You can compare it, let's say, with the BBC. And on the second channel, that's called Canvas, and that's where all the documentaries, yeah, the better programs are. So here again, some footage. Here they are using a JIP. So it seems to be a talk show. Monitors with NDI. Again, some uses of the JIP. And here, this is all done with vMix. So you can imagine, yeah, if the national broadcast company is interested in using vMix or let's say whatever live streaming program, I think that's a big one, because that tells that live streaming and vMix live streaming programs are finding their way more and more to the national broadcast companies. So I really found this interesting, because it shows what can be done with vMix or whatever live streaming program. Okay, topic of the day, and I tell you, it's already told you, it's going to be a short one, and it's going to be triggers. Now, if we go to the vMix help page, they tell what are triggers, and they say that triggers can be used to automate tasks when an input either begins a transition in, begins a transition out, or when a video completes playback. And also on overlay in and on overlay out can be used when an input is used and an overlay. So I'm going to show you a few examples, because I always think that an example gives you more or less a better idea what trigger is. But with triggers you can automate almost everything. I know a few weeks ago someone suggested that I forgot to push record. Oh, you can create a trigger for that, to bring in titles, to bring in to start your live stream. Almost everything can be done. And when you combine that with shortcuts, which we're going to see probably in 2 or 3 weeks, it's like the holy grail. So, but let's start with, and I'm just going to try to show you one of the, this is just an input here, a very basic one. So what I can do is, let's say that I switch to this input. What it's going to do, it brings in automatically a lower third, and after a few seconds the lower third is gone. Now, how can we do that? Here, if you take your input, you have the cogwheel here, and when you click on the cogwheel you have triggers here. Now, how do you create a trigger? Here you can choose on completion, so that's when a video is finished. So let's say that when this is a video, I click here on completion, then you have to tell what should happen when the video is finished. You can say, for instance, okay, when the video is finished, just go to an input, or bring up a title, or start a timer. So this is what you can do here. Which input do you want to use? Here you can choose from all your inputs. The duration is by the default fade duration. If it's determined in the first place, what you've done here in overlays, and the delay is how long it's going to take from the moment you start the trigger. So if you take a look here, what's going to happen the moment the input transitions in, it brings in overlay input 2. Which input? News HD 4. After 1 second, and then I created another trigger that says, okay, the same on transition in. What does it have to do? Overlay input 2 out, and go to preview after it's 5 seconds. So if I do it again. So I have this input. If I bring my input with the trigger now, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So after 5 seconds, it's gone. So this is an example from on transition in, on transition out, a very simple one. Let me show you another one. And this, I think, and I have to be very careful. Let's say that you have some inputs here. This is an input, and you have a lower third, and you want the lower third here always on. So when I switch my inputs, the lower third is always going to stay on. But then I have another input. Let's say you have a camera view and you don't want the input over that, the lower third over that input. So the moment I switch now to this input, yeah, I just named it no lower third. How is this done? Again, if we click here on the cogwheel, you see here, when I bring in this input on transition in, it says put overlay input 3, which is my lower third, put it off. So that's an easy way to say, okay, I want to have a lower third on all the inputs, but on this input and that input, I don't want it. You can choose here on transition in, and you can, the functions, you can use all the functions that are in vMix, so almost all the shortcuts you can use. And that's one of my, if I have to give one point of critique in vMix, then it's that the explanation of the shortcuts, I think it can be improved, because it's often you have to play with it. And then there is sometimes an explanation, okay, you have to use index input, and it's, for me, at least for me, it's not always clear what to put as index or input. So I think I'm going to mail vMix that is a point for improvement, so people can use more and more of these shortcuts and triggers. Now, a very crazy one. If I switch again to my other laptop, one, you can here choose on completion, on transition in, on transition out. A crazy one is, I find it a crazy one. You see there on audio meter with a decibel scale. What that can do is, the moment it goes over a certain decibel level, it triggers something. I haven't found myself something that's really interesting. Maybe someone in the chat can know what can be interesting for that. So I'm going to activate the trigger again, and if I go 11, so it switches the it switches the output. So, but you have to play. Yeah, there's some really there's much noise here. So it's the moment I talk, it switches. So this is something you can do with on audio meter. You see, if I untick it, you can prepare your triggers. If you untick it, it's not being used. And one of the last ones I want to show you is, let's because we also have the on overlay, and I have to see that I don't make a mistake now with my inputs. So let's say that we have the lower third. Yep. So I'll put this one here. I'm going to put on the lower third here. Let me quickly, and I'm completely messing everything up for the moment. So we have the lower third. Yeah. Whatever input I choose, the lower third is going to stay on. But let's say that I want to bring in, like I sometimes do on my show, a picture-in-picture. And I want that the lower third is always on, except when I bring in a picture-in-picture. And I think it's here, if I bring in now a picture-in-picture, you're going to see that the lower third is gone. If I disable the picture-in-picture, my lower third is coming on again. And that can be done here via on overlay in and on overlay out. So what am I saying? My overlay number 3 is a picture-in-picture. And I say the moment I bring in overlay input number 3, what should that do? Overlay the moment picture-in-picture, disable the title, and when I disable my picture-in-picture, bring in the title again. So this is what can be done with overlay in and overlay out. So let me do it again. The moment I say I bring in my picture-in-picture, the lower third has to disappear. So it's disappear. When I now say OK, disable again the picture-in-picture. So the moment I say do that, my lower third is up again. So this is what can be done with the on overlay in and overlay out. Now a last example, something that Tommy was talking about last week. Let's say that you want a ticker to bring in messages just before or during the service. At the moment the preacher is starting to talk, you want the ticker off, of course. So whenever I change my inputs here, the ticker is always on. But when I switch, and I just named it camera preacher, but let's say that that's the camera. When I switch to this camera input, I just have the camera feed from the preacher. And how is that done? Again, if I click here, what have I done? Again, there are several possibilities to do it. Maybe it's not the right way, but on transition in, so when I bring in the camera feed of the preacher, it's saying overlay input 1, which was the ticker, off. Here on transition out, so whenever I go from the camera feed from the preacher to another input, bring in the ticker again. So if I bring in here this one again, I have my ticker. If I go to the preacher, I have only the camera feed from the preacher. So these are a few examples how you can use titles and overlays, but again, everything can be done. And I see here Elmore is saying, yeah, automation can be dangerous. You're totally right, Elmore. That's why I still not using a lot of triggers and shortcuts at the moment, because the more you automate, the more difficult it can become to see what's going wrong. And it's certainly here with the triggers, test, test, and test. Because sometimes there is a conflict and you try a few things, you bring in another input with another trigger, there's a conflict and there's a problem. Yes, Elmar is also saying that he's using the APC Mini. That's also one of the MIDI things I'm going to show you in 2 or 3 weeks, again, together with the XKeys 24. And the very last example I want to give you, and I really hope it's working. A few weeks ago, no, I think it was in the October edition of the vMix Funtime live show, they showed the 4K, and they also showed the 4K behind the scenes. What I've done here is I have recreated that, and let me just, what you're going to see here is the intro. I've used my example, but it was their intro. And the moment they're going to activate the intro, a few things are going to happen. So let me just show you. So I'll push quick play. So the intro video is going to do, it's going to switch to the main camera. It brings up Tim's lower third. After a few seconds, it's going to switch to Martin's lower third. And if you see here on the bottom that my recording is started. So how have they done it? And it's exactly the same what they're using at the start of all their live shows. So on transition in, start recording, you go then the main camera. And then on completion, there is what you were seeing. There's a fade to the main camera. The next step is bring in Tim's mic. So if you do that, if I have done that in my first episode, my audio would always have been on. So it's bringing Tim's mic on. Then the next step is it brings Martin's mic on. It shows then here after a delay of 2 seconds, it brings in Tim title. And because the main camera was a shot of both of them, after 5 seconds, so 3 seconds later than Tim's title, Martin's title was brought in. And they also did a loop off of another video that was running. So if you see here, and they push a button, so the moment that let's say that they click, they push on start, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps were executed in succession. And in this way, you can be very comfortable. And the moment you want to, you're in pre-show, you push start on your APC Mini or XKeys, and it's going to start the recording, fade to your main camera, bring your audio, overlay inputs, and all this stuff on. So this is a very nice and not that difficult example of the guys of vMix. When I'm going to talk about the XKeys 24 and the producer starter kit, you're going to see a lot more examples. So I hope that did give you an idea about what you can do with triggers. By all means, there are way more possibilities you can do, but more examples are going to follow in 2 or 3 weeks when I bring in some guests maybe, and we talk about shortcuts and the producer starter kit. Let me see. Hi Dan. Dan is saying here it's different if you are switching the show than if you're trying to be on air and switch at the same time. That's totally correct, Dan. When I did, and it's more or less also what Elmar is saying. When I was the producer of the Wall show and I was using the X-Keys 24, I was very relaxed because, yeah, I practically had to push 1 or 2 buttons, and for the rest I just had to pay attention. Okay, if that speaker is okay, is that okay, is that okay? But if you're doing the show yourself, trying to talk, trying to watch all your screens, and then your MIDI device, it's very easy to make mistakes, and it's something I'm not at the moment not that comfortable with. So I think that I'll first try to improve this way of working. I know how X-Keys and APC Mini, how they are working. And bit by bit I'll try to automate the show. The advantage of having done it this way and not from the first time with the X-Keys producer starter kit is I have screwed up a few times, but when I looked at every input I could immediately tell, okay, that's the problem. So that was it for this week's episode, the technical part. Because I liked last week so much to bring in a guest, and before I bring in my mystery guest, which you all knows in the meantime, is I want to ask a few people in the chat, not the regular guys, but in particular the 2 people who have followed most of my shows, like John Thompson and Elmar, if they are interested in one of these weeks, come into the show and have a small talk. It doesn't have to be about live streaming. If it's about live streaming, the better. But just bring you guys in so we can see who you are. And it's just that I want to give an opportunity to everyone who hasn't been live on one of all the other shows to come into our show, and maybe it can open some doors for you to come into other shows. So Elmar and John, if you're interested, just mail me and we'll try to arrange one of these weeks that you come into the show. That would be really great. I really like bringing in some guests. So now it's time to bring our mystery guest, which isn't a mystery guest. If I take the plane and I fly 12 hours and then I take the car, then I arrive normally at Tommy's place. Tommy, is it possible that your YouTube is still on? Could you mute that one so I can bring it in because I have some feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring in live from Alabama, Mr. Tommy Willis.
I have a correction for you, Rudy.
Yes, Tommy?
Can you hear me?
I can hear Tommy.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, but I still have some feedback.
I don't have anything on.
Maybe I'm doing something wrong then?
Hold on, I'm killing everything. Is that better?
Yep, that's okay, Tommy.
Okay. I killed everybody in the chat and all of that. But the thing you said about taking a car here to Alabama is at the state border, you have to swap your car for a mule and a wagon and then come on in, because we don't allow cars. They're bad for the environment. Now, what the mule drops along the way, we scoop up, use for fertilizer, so we're very ecology minded. But that's the way that works. But I do want to thank you for this class today, because I'm not very familiar with triggers. And I see a need right now for a trigger on my church website or streaming site for the trigger to start recording. So I'm looking forward. When I get to church, I'm going to implement that trigger to start with, because it seems like every Sunday I forget to start the record button. So I'm gonna fix that.
Okay, that's good, Tommy.
Okay, that's good, Tommy.
Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I enjoy stuff like this now. I used to be camera shy, but not anymore. I figured the way I look, if you can't handle it, that's too bad.
Yeah. But how did you start with live streaming, Tommy?
How did you start with live streaming, Tommy?
Blab.
That's exactly the same for me.
I wanted to get into it.
Exactly the same for me.
I wanted to get into it because of my church. I wanted to be able to live stream the service and all of that. And I found a program or a show on the internet called Blab. And I was very, very shy about it. But I was watching a lot of shows. It had good content. It was almost like having a TV with live shows. And I enjoyed it. I would listen to someone. If they weren't having anything interesting, I'd go to another Blab broadcast and listen to that. That's how I discovered a lot of the people that I know now on the internet, was through that Blab. And then they decided they wanted to mess it all up, and Blab went away. So, I've been sort of keeping touch with other people since then. And that's really how I got started and I went on to Blab eventually, got over my camera shyness and would jump in and have a good time. And then it's gone from there. And my main goal the whole time, though, has been to live stream my church service. I kept waiting until I had it perfect, which is wrong. And finally one day, matter of fact, it was the world of live streaming that got me over that hump of waiting till I had it perfect. And you're one of them, because you told me you just start. And so I did, and made all kind of mistakes. But I learned from each one of those mistakes and just kept going. And now it's pretty much I ain't gonna say set in stone, but most live streams lately have went over great. I do have some audio problems that I've got to work on, but other than that, it's a regular Sunday thing. I get 4 or 5 people, sometimes one person, watching, and if they're homebound, that's my whole goal.
Yep.
If they're out of town, that's a goal, and so it's working out pretty good that way.
Yeah. Talking about screwing up, Tommy. Apparently, it's just my microphone that's creating a loop. So, maybe people in the chat can help me here live. What could be the problem?
So I killed Mike Latta for nothing when I clicked off YouTube?
Yeah, you killed Mike Latta.
You killed Mike Latta.
Poor Mike.
Yeah, I'm still looping, and I think here is everything okay, but okay, let's just continue to talk.
Okay.
I think, Tommy...
I don't hear anything out of the ordinary. You were crackling a little while, but I don't hear that anymore.
Oh, Giles is suggesting, Tommy, can you take your headphones off and see if you still can hear me? Can you still hear me now, Tommy?
Say something.
I'm still talking.
All right, did it go away?
Let's meet. Yep, I'm talking now, and it seems the audio loop is gone.
Okay, what I did was I forgot to turn my speakers all the way down. I apologize to you and everyone listening.
No problem, Tommy. That's
But
it's by
I
doing
need a
things.
trigger for that too.
It's by doing this things like this live that we can learn. I didn't know, but thanks to Giles for the check is
Yeah.
on the way, Giles. So it's lovely to have some people
I
who
really
knows
hate-
immediately what's the problem. Tommy, let's.
I really hate being beholden to Giles, but I'll give him kudos on that.
Let's talk a little bit about streaming in the church, Tommy. I think for you guys in the States, it's rather normal. I've seen that in the UK, it's also some churches are live streaming. In Belgium, and I don't know, Elmar, how it's in Germany. But I don't know a lot about live streaming in church. Why is it? What do you think it's so important to do a live streaming from the church in the States?
Well, I'm the whole team, but the pastor goes along with the thinking is the church is four walls. What we want to do and what the Great Commission is to go outside those four walls and outreach to people in need, people that are lost, people that are on vacation, the homebound people that just cannot come to church. And if we live stream and then show them how to find us on the live stream, then they can attend a service in real time. And my thinking is that you can watch a recording of it if you want to, but seeing it live is a big difference. I'm very particular to live streaming programs as opposed to watching a recorded program. It may be that I just want to, the interactive part of it is what I like. I can make a remark, whether it's smart remark or sensible, but I can make the remarks, while it's going on, and I think people watching, if they realize that it's happening right then in church, the pastor that the homebound, they know him. And I think they get a blessing from it.
Yeah.
I've been told by a couple of the homebound people that they love it. They absolutely enjoy it. They can't come to church, so they'll watch it at home.
Mm-hmm. Do all the churches have top-notch material, Tommy? The latest of the latest, or do you have other equipment?
The equipment I bought, we've got one camera. Well, the two cameras we're using right now are the church's equipment. I'm using one $200 camcorder that the church bought. I talked them into that. And I discovered that the older camera, which is a DVD recording composite output camera, a Canon, I'm running it in through a USB dongle and get a decent picture. And so I'm using a 2-camera shot. And the church did buy the computer for another reason, but I took it and I'm not giving it back. And it's worked out real good. It's an i7 7700, very low on the power scale, but it's working for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, the equipment is pieced together.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason, Tommy, that I ask you, because for those who don't know Tommy, when he started, and it was thanks to WOLS again, to all the people in the WOLS group, when he started, he had some equipment problems, but together we figured, everyone gave some feedback, and Tommy figured it out how to do it. And I'll never going to forget, and please correct me, Tommy, if I'm wrong, but at I think it was your first or your second live stream that you got a really nice mail from someone. That watched the live stream?
Rudy, you got to understand, I'm old and I forget stuff. Who did I get the email from?
Weren't you thanked by a woman who couldn't attend the service, and thanks to your live stream?
Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That lady, Ms. Gandhi, she's the one that sent me the message, and thanking for letting her be able to watch the service, because her husband had just passed away about, I don't know, 6 weeks before, and she got sick because she had been taking care of him so long. She was neglecting her own health, and now this is an elderly lady, and but she couldn't make it to church, and she watched the live stream and told me how much she enjoyed it, and what a blessing it was for her. So yeah, you're right. Things skip my mind. I forget Martin's name a lot, but
yeah, it's Steed. No. What the moment you received that message, Tommy? What did it for you?
Yeah, it did. It told me that I was on the right path of what we're doing at the church. I feel like God. Everybody was against this to start with, and I just waited and I laid it on God's hands to change people's minds, and He did. I mean, I started live streaming without permission. I had to sort of to do that. I'm not above sneaky stuff, and so I just started live streaming, and then the word got out with the members of the church, and now they're all for it. They love it. They didn't know what it was. It was something different. This is an older church, older people, but I want to get the young people in there, and without doing the disco ball hanging in the middle of the church and stuff like that. I still want it to be the traditional Baptist church. But we've got to use the tools that are available, and live streaming is an important tool.
Yep.
You think about it, Jesus was a great PR man. When He healed people, there were other people around, and He knew that, and word got out. So
yeah,
I heard a ding dong.
I think it certainly can help whoever to bring also in the community, at the community level, to bring in. We're struggling here a lot on the volunteer side, bringing in young guys, young people, and I think live streaming, I have the feeling that it's changing bit by bit. If you look at IBC, NAB, a few years ago, nobody talked about live streaming. Live streaming was something for geeks. It was also dangerous, because certainly at sports events and cultural events, people are still thinking, if we are live streaming it, we are not going to have any attendance. But the contrary is true. People see, the atmosphere during the live stream, and when if they want to see it live, they go see it live. So I really think that's a good change.
I agree with the attendance part. It hasn't hurt our attendance. We're only about 50 people meeting anyway, but the only people watching are the ones that can't make it to church. Now, I do have some that are in church back in the children's, the nursery part, where they're watching the children during the service. I had one lady come online watching this past Sunday, and I knew she was in the nursery, so she couldn't see the service, so she just she went onto the site and watched it live.
Yeah. Okay, nice one. There is a question for you, Tommy, from the chat. John Thompson is asking if you still sing along with the hymns during the service.
If I still sing along?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You know, if I do that, it empties the service. I mean, the church, the pews are empty. When I start singing, people scream and run and all that. So I just sort of keep my mouth shut and push buttons in the back. I'm going to do a tour one day when I get the Martin special cameras set up. I'm going to do a tour of the church with the cameras and where I work and all of that stuff.
That would be great. That yeah, certainly something interesting to show. I think those small cameras that Martin are using, and well, more and more people, they're really
Yes.
they're great. They're not expensive, and you can hang them almost everywhere. So yeah, that's certainly an added value also for churches. Is there something you want to try to accomplish, Tommy, in live streaming? That you said this is really a goal for me.
Just get better at it. Get more at it. I want to do not just church service live streaming. I want to do other events at the church live, and that's going to be a little further down the road, because this church can't afford equipment. And so what I'm doing is I'm buying it on my own as I go and just going that way. But I want to do some community outreach programs. We have a couple of charities here in town. Now, this is a small town nearby. It's about 5,000 people. But we've got one charity that does a great job, and I want to sort of highlight them. And I set them up a Facebook page because I didn't know how, and got that going. And I want to be able to promote. If you're not able to promote the things that are going on, no one will ever see it, or no one will ever pay any attention. So I guess the marketing part of it.
Yeah. Okay, that was really great, Tommy. I really thank you for being on my show, and I'm certain.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm convinced that you're like Merle. At the moment, you're going to start, and we're going to see you nationwide in the States, because we all know when you start, there's no stopping Tommy. So thanks again, Tommy. And are there any questions for what Tommy is doing at church?
Thank you, Rudy, for what you're doing with these classes, because I do learn something every class.
Oh, that's you're very welcome,
And
Tommy.
you'll notice that I've got my School of Live Streaming.
Yeah, this is maybe something. Tommy Martin is saying that keep it up, Tommy. As you go, you will learn, and that I think it's more or less the tagline of SOLS, and you are helping others by getting streams out there. So yeah, it's all about for us at a certain point giving something back to the community, and I know you are a big help for the community. So big thumbs up for you, Tommy.
What Giles and Martin are doing for the community is excellent, awesome, and I love those guys for that. With the help with the kids and stuff, it's good.
Another question for you, Tommy, is from Dan Slider. He's asking if you have mounted a camera and mic, or are you using tripods?
Actually, I'm using a bicycle mount on a piece of PVC pipe for one camera, and I'm using a tripod and I'm sorry, not a tripod. I'm using a mic stand with a camera attachment adapter on it for the second camera. They're not that far apart because I don't have the cabling. That's why I want the PoE cameras to where I can move away from my room that I'm in. It's in a little cubby hole type thing. but I want to be able to move the cameras to different positions to get different perspectives of the sanctuary, and the preacher. He likes to move around sometimes, so I want to be able to cover everything he's doing.
That's really nice, and I think Martin Steed is showing also what can be done with multiple from the small cameras. Yeah, I think we all can learn from each other, and it's for me it's interesting to see how live streaming in churches is the same or differs from other streams like sports or broad news. Because I think every place has its own, like, yeah, internet problems. I can think if you're in a concrete building that internet can maybe be the big problem. Maybe it's easier when you're doing a sports broadcast, but I think every live stream has its its own problems.
I believe you can learn from every broadcast you watch, whether it's sports or excuse me, or what else. You know, you always take away a little bit, because when I'm watching something, I'm looking for, you know, how did they do that and how did they do this. So, yeah, live streaming is good.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go in post-show, I'm just going to mute you briefly, Tommy. If there are any questions, I have a small announcement for next week, and then we have a small post-show. So if there are any questions or remarks about today's show, you can ask Tommy or me in post-show. Thanks, Tommy, again, and all the best with your live streaming projects.
Thank you for having me, Rudy.
Okay. Big thumbs up for Tommy and what he's doing for his community. This was it more or less for today. Next week is going to be a little special. It can go two directions. One, it's a lot is going to depend about vMix 21. If there is something besides the color thing, because I think enough people are going to make movies about that, and if there's something really special, I think I am going to briefly touch what's new in vMix 21. But for the rest, there's not going to be a subject, and normally I don't announce my next week's guest, but this one is special, not only for me, but for the live streaming community. And I want to give him the proper time to explain everything, because next week's guest is Dan Slider from PI Engineering, aka X-Keys. And Dan Slider is going to show us all the X-Keys, what's possible, and we can talk about that. So if you have questions beforehand, please go to my website, schooloflivestreaming.com. There's a contact form. Send the questions you have about X-Keys so I can send them to Dan beforehand. And that can give me maybe a kind of a special dynamic to the show. Otherwise, of course, as usual, you can ask your questions during the show, as Dan is probably going to talk most part of the time. I'm going to have a look at the live stream and see the questions, and then ask the questions to Dan. So my short show was 10-15 minutes, was almost again an hour, but that's why I really like to bring in a guest. If I can keep combining a small explanation with a guest, but at a certain moment I'm going to be out of guests. That's why I want to bring in some new people. But this is kind of the format I really like. Maybe I'll bring some other guests in that's not necessarily going to talk about live streaming, but maybe what they're doing professionally in audio video world. This was it for today. So next week, don't forget, Dan Slider from PI Engineering. And in 2 days, there is the Funtime live show of vMix with a big vMix 21 announcement. Thanks everyone who has been in the chat so far and being a part of the live stream. I hope to see you next week. I'll stay a few minutes together with Tommy in the post show if there are any more questions. Thank you and see you next week. Bye-bye. Okay, and we are official in the post show now. Let me bring in Tommy again, so it's not only about me, but it's about me and Tommy. So, are there any questions so far? I see there is already a questions about X keys. So Elmar, just send them via the website. I think that's going to be the easiest one. And I see that I've muted Tommy. So Tommy is normally also live again.
Yeah, I answered some of the questions while you were bowing out.
Great,
but
Tommy.
I don't know if I got them all.
Yeah. Apparently people liked your appearance. I was a little scared that I if I told beforehand I'm going to invite Tommy Willis, my viewership, or it was rocketing to the roof, or it was going down. And,
I rocketed to some other show.
But yeah, you did well, Tommy. It's when's the special? John is asking when the special guest is coming on. That's Scottish wit, Tommy.
Wait a minute, was that a cut? Was he cutting me down?
That Slider is asking Tommy if you're using that one as the only mic, or is there another mic into the room? Because there
I'm sorry, is that the only mix?
The microphone. Are you using only the microphone now in front of you, or is your laptop or so still picking up
I have another microphone, but it's turned completely off.
Yeah.
I got a cheap condenser mic, and I've been playing with it, and I can't tell a whole lot of difference, although the ATR 2100 is warmer sounding to me than this $15 condenser mic, but I've been playing with it, and there's not a lot of difference. I might could do something with the EQ with this one to get it sounding better, but I didn't want to do that on live thing today.
Yeah, and there were also, I think, some comments about cracking of my microphone. I'm going to pay attention to the recording. I think it can that it's too close to my cheek, and that it's from time to time rubbing against my cheek. I think that can be the problem, but thank you for letting me notice it.
I could hear it mostly. When you were bent over, so that makes me think you're right. It was scratching against your face.
Yeah.
Maybe you should shave or something.
Yeah. I'm a beginning of a beard, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think yesterday in Wall Show, apparently everyone has to let grow a beard over at Walls. So I'm one of the only people without a beard. But oh, Tommy, Dan was meaning during church service. Are you only using the preacher's lavalier mic, or do you have another for the hymns?
All the sound, we have choir mics and video, when they play video up on the screens, all of that goes in through the soundboard. And because I can't get a good connection from a soundboard to my media room. I'm using one of the hearing assist receivers. We've got people that, you know, don't hear very well. Of course, that's not me. I'm perfect. But they use those with the earphones, and they can, you know, listen to the service just like they're sitting in the front pew. But I took one of the old ones and put it in my room and connected a little cable into the input, and I turn it on each Sunday and get, you know, decent sound. But whatever it is, it's coming out of the soundboard. I need my own mixer in that room with a separate input, because sometimes what's going into the soundboard will overdrive or saturate in the computer. But that's on down the road. We're doing okay for right now.
And then a question from Martin. Will you be using a mixture of cameras for the church streaming?
I'm sorry, will I be using a what now?
A mixture of cameras for the church streaming.
Oh, a mixture of cameras. No, because of the lag. Once I get 4 PoE cameras to running and set up using the PoE switch, I will remove the Canon and Sony cameras that we're using right now. It will all be PoE. And I have to do that because of the lag of the PoE cameras. There is some lag, and there's no way I could have them lip sync if I was switching, you know, 2 more cameras that weren't PoE on VIV.
Okay. Let's see. Elmar is suggesting that we are growing beards until Streamfest.
I'm ahead of you.
Yeah. Giles is telling you, Tommy, that you can probably delay the other cams too much.
Okay, that's something that I'll play with and just try to see what happens. If I had 6 camera inputs, it'd be great. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to having 4 on-VIV PoE cameras moved away from the room and better aspect or better perspective on the room. So yeah, I'll look at that and see. I'll probably come back on walls crying and groaning and everything, and need all you guys' help, because all of you are smarter than me, and I'm still learning this stuff. The only way I feel smart is when I come up against like a 2-year-old kid, and I'll look at him, I say, you know what live streaming is? And he just sort of looks at me, and I go, hey, I'm smarter than him.
Yeah. Elmar is saying here, and that's a good one, always good to have some control for the incoming audio. That's Elmar, are you the same as Ovinas on the forums? Because I saw a picture of on the blog about the setting up of your APC Mini. Is it okay, Elmar, that I show the picture of your APC Mini, or do you prefer that I don't show it? Let me just wait, because I don't want to show pictures of someone else's setup. Okay, I can show it from Elmar. I wanted to show them in 2 weeks, but I think it's interesting because following the comment that Elmar gave about inputs, let me see here. This is a the setup, the APC Mini setup from Elmar, and of course you've seen other setups, and maybe if we are talking in 2 weeks about shortcuts and APC Mini and X keys, that Elmar, if Elmar is then in the chat, he can explain what everything is. But you see here, he has a master slider, not a master DAN, but a master slider. He has a slider for his headphone volume, bus A, bus B, also the audio in, then for some music. And I think that's really interesting. You can use, of course, the built-in mixer of vMix, but that's a really nice setup. Then you have the cameras probably here, again some audio buttons. The yellow buttons, maybe for picture-in-picture. Here he has buttons for full external, fade to black, recording, stream, freeze, the 4 overlays, the merge function, but I'm now clicking on, a fade cut, and T1. So you see here that it's a really nice setup, and I really like the labels. I think Elmar was using a Brother with some transparent labels. But this gives you a really nice example what can be done with an APC Mini or an X keys. So it can really make everything a lot easier. So thank you, Elmar, that I could show that here on the live stream. Giles is asking, oh, John, how did you do the transparency on the buttons? I asked Elmar it, and he told me that he was using a Brother label printer with some transparent labels. Yeah, Brother P-Touch with clear tape. Yes, Giles is all. That's what I wanted to show it. It's the way the labels are made is for me one of the best I've seen so far. It was really nice. And Elmar, the buttons left, right, are these for picture-in-picture? Like I'm doing now for saying that left box and right box, or is it for something else? Let me quickly show it again. So the yellow buttons with the screens, are these for a picture-in-picture or for something else? Okay, questions for Elmar in the chat. Let me see, and which P-Touch driver software? Yes, okay, the yellow ones, let me show it quickly. So here the yellow buttons with the screens, which are very nice done, is for sending input to the left and the right part of a multi-view. So that's very nice done, Elmar. So this is
my CMD Touch Behringer that I bought off of eBay real cheap, and you see the white labels, they don't look as good as what Elmar's got on his. So, but I do have a banana.
But yeah, you're seeing Tommy is whatever it works, but it was very nice done, that one from Elmar. So maybe we can talk about that more in think probably 2 weeks if everything goes as planned. Shortcuts and the lights. Forgot the correct name. We're going to talk because they are going together, so we're going to talk about them in 2 weeks. It's probably going to be very basic. I know how to program everything. We're just going to show how you connect an APC Mini or an X keys, what needs to be done if there is extra software necessary and stuff like that. So if you have questions about that or for next week, please use my website schooloflivestreaming.com, and so we can prepare ourselves to give you the correct answers. Thank you, Giles. The lights, I forgot the name. They're called activators. Yeah, Elmar is looking for a banana on Amazon. I found a few for €3, Elmar, because I told Tommy that they could be found on Amazon. So the bananas, they can be found on Amazon. Otherwise, you have to buy those small packets, and you don't know what's in it.
Type in if you'll type in Lego
Banana
banana,
Man.
it'll
Yeah.
come up. Yeah.
Okay, guys. 9:10 here. Again, thanks everyone for being on the show again. I enjoyed the show as usual, and not for the last time. Thanks, Tommy, for being a guest. You were a great guest on tonight's show and talking about everything you're doing for the church and the live streaming community. Hope to see everyone next week, and bye-bye, guys.